Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our panel. It's a great pleasure to have you. I'm Abdedaim, Battioui, a PhD researcher here at UNC, focusing on the life cycle of battery, lithium battery. And I have the pleasure to moderate this panel focusing on energy security in Africa and the Middle East in the context of the global cooperation. Before starting today, I'd like to ask our distinguished guests to introduce themselves. We have over Zoom Dr. Jauad Kharraz. He couldn't get his visa to be with us in person, and special thanks to Dr. Greg to allow this exception to have him over Zoom. Dr. Kharraz, can you hear us?
Yes, I do. Good morning.
Morning. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me, Dr. Greg and Dr. Abdedaim. I'm Jauad Kharraz, Senior Associate at ECCO, which is an Italian think tank based in Italy. I served as Executive Director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency in the last 3 years in Egypt, which is an intergovernmental organization covering the MENA region, where I gained significant experience in renewable energy and the green hydrogen policies and deployments. I've had also the privilege to work with a leading organization like Liilnna, European Commission, UNIDO, World Bank, and UNESCO on projects across the MENA region. My background includes also some experience in water policy and desalination technologies. So I'm looking forward really to discuss with you this very important topic, in particular energy security and in the context of climate change in Africa and the Middle East. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kharraz. Liilnna?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Liilnna Teji. I'm a Senior Policy Associate at the Duke University's James Energy Access Project. I've been with the Energy Access Project works on accelerating sustainable energy solutions through research, policy engagement, and partnership with private sector and government in low and middle income countries. My background before joining Duke, I was mostly working in the private sector. So I worked in Ethiopia in developing large-scale solar projects with Enel Green Power, but also I worked on mini-grid development and supporting regulatory and legal, providing regulatory and legal support to private sector. Thank you. And thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Mirna?
Good morning. This is Mirna Elsharief. I'm also a Senior Policy Associate at the Duke University's Energy Access Project. This is actually my first month. I recently joined, and it's actually my first month in the US. So this is very new for me. I'm really glad to be participating in a panel at UNC in my first month. Previously, I used to work for 5 years at the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development, and International Cooperation in Egypt. So my focus was on development partnerships. How can we leverage multilateral cooperation to mobilize investment for green projects? And this is how I actually met my team that I work with now. And I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a short video from a Minister of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development of Morocco. Can start with it and then we'll dive into our discussion.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to apologize for not being able to be with you in person due to other scheduling constraints. It's really a pleasure to participate with you today at the UNC Clean Tech Summit in 2025, which focuses on really advancements in clean energy, sustainability, and environmental solutions. I'm really delighted to speak to you today on a topic that is of paramount importance for our economic growth, for our sustainability, but also for our future prosperity, our nation's energy security. And as we navigate a rapidly changing global energy landscape, we stand today at a turning point where challenges must be met with strategic solutions and innovative opportunities. We want today to change this turning point into an inflection point. So, ladies and gentlemen, Morocco has long recognized that the future of economic growth and sustainability and prosperity really lies in a clean and resilient energy transition. Over the past 2 decades, under the visionary leadership of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, Morocco has implemented one of the most ambitious energy transition strategies in the world based on 3 key pillars: renewables, efficiency, and strengthening regional integration, because for us there is no contradiction between security and sustainability. Our objective now is to exceed 52% of installed capacity based on renewable sources by 2030. We are very sure that we are going to reach that before 2030. And there are significant contributions from solar, wind, and hydro. We've already made substantial progress. We have today 6 gigawatts that is already installed, representing 45% of our installed capacity, and we are planning on adding 7.5 gigawatts between now and 2027. Morocco is also focusing on boosting energy efficiency, boosting natural gas infrastructure, green hydrogen, and also energy storage technologies to ensure a sustainable and resilient energy system. Our geographical position, coupled with modern infrastructure, provides a strategic advantage. We are the only energy corridor today between Africa and Europe that is making us a key player in regional energy cooperation. We are working to strengthening interconnections with our neighbors to enhance energy trade and stability. Ladies and gentlemen, in this inflection point, Morocco is turning challenges into opportunities in ensuring long-term energy security. We are reducing dependence on energy imports because 90% of our energy needs are dependent on global price fluctuations and supply chain disruptions. We are multiplying energy storage and grid modernization in energy storage solutions such as battery storage, pumped hydro systems to ensure a stable and efficient power supply in addition to gas technologies. We are also overcoming financing and investment challenges with large-scale bankable projects and public-private partnerships and international cooperation to really overcome biased financing and overcome the need to meet the growing demand for energy infrastructure. And also we are focusing on research and development to create climate-resilient energy and economic strategies and country development plans. And you heard me, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, I use the word planning because our energy security is not just about meeting energy needs. It's about ensuring a sustainable and prosperous future for current generations and for future generations. So through continued investment, through continued strategic planning and international collaboration, Morocco is a really interesting model for you to learn about energy resilience. Let us continue to work together to achieve a more sustainable, secure, and prosperous future. The path ahead is one of collaboration, innovation, and mutual benefit. Thank you again, and I wish you a successful event and fruitful discussions.
Thank you. We'll start with Dr. Kharraz. Given your experience in the region and building on the minister points, how do you see global trends influencing energy security in the region, both in the Middle East and Africa?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Indeed, I mean, both regions, I mean, Africa and the MENA have a complex, let's say, interplay of challenges from geopolitical instability and the climate change impact to the rapid population growth and also the need for sustainable economic development. Energy security, as you know, is not merely about having just enough energy. It's about also ensuring access to reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy sources that could promote inclusive growth and environmental sustainability. So indeed, there are many key global trends influencing this energy security strategies in both regions. First, I can mention the push for for global energy transition and decarbonization efforts, we see clearly a growing push for energy independence, driven by geopolitical uncertainties, as mentioned by the minister, fluctuating fossil fuel prices. This is coupled with the urgent need to mitigate climate change, prompting a global transition towards renewable energy sources. At national level, strategies vary based on resource endowments, economic development levels, and political priorities. Some nations are focusing more on diversifying their energy mix, while others prioritize energy access for underserved populations. So the balancing act between these national and global priorities is a central challenge. On the other hand, the push for net zero emissions, reinforced by, as you know, the Paris agreements, the COP28 pledge of taking away fossil fuel in the transition, is driving the shift from fossil fuel actually to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and green hydrogen. Historically, as you know, fossil fuel powerhouse, we talk about over 50% of global oil and 40% of natural gas reserves. MENA is diversifying its energy mix now. So we have very ambitious target in the region, starting by Morocco. We are talking about reaching 52% of renewables in the mix by 2030. In Egypt, we are talking about 42%, and they are trying to update it. In Algeria, around 37%. In Tunisia, 30%. So we have, as you see, a very ambitious target in terms of increasing the share of renewables in the mix. In countries like Saudi Arabia or UAE, so we have a heavy investment in solar and green hydrogen project. Only Saudi Arabia, we're talking about $200 billion of investment in green hydrogen initiative. So this reduced reliance on oil export and aligns with the global decarbonization demands, enhancing energy security through sustainable domestic supply. In Africa, with the vast potential, Africa is leveraging this trend to address energy access gaps. As you know, in Africa, we are talking about more than 600 million people lacking electricity. That is huge. So, but there are some programs like, for example, the World Bank's assets that aims to connect 100 million people in Eastern and Southern Africa by 2030, using clean energy and reducing dependence on imported fuels. I can also mention a second key trend, which is the geopolitical instability and supply chain vulnerabilities, which was also mentioned by Elsharief, the minister. So the Ukraine war and the Middle East tensions and the Greece power rivalries, EU-China competition, as you know, disrupt traditional energy trade routes and expose vulnerabilities in global supply chains for oil, gas, and critical minerals. Another important trend also is the rise of Asia as a dominant energy consumer. So we see that clearly, particularly China and India, with the IEA forecasting oil demand growing from 0.84 million barrels per day in 2024 to 1.1 this year, largely driven by these regions. So global energy demand rose by 2.2% last year, according to the last report of IEA, lower than GDP growth of 3.2%, but considerably faster than the average annual demand increase, which was 1.3% between 2013 and 2023. The fourth, also, let's say, trend is the technological advancement in renewables and grid infrastructure. So this is another key trend, falling cost of solar. So you see in the MENA region, a very competitive prices of electricity coming from solar. We're talking about 1 cent, 2 cents dollar kilowatt hour. So this is very, very competitive and very competitive price. Alongside smart grid technologies, enabled decentralized and resilient energy systems. For example, Liilnna notes renewables could supply 26% of MENA energy and 53% of its power by 2050. Another also important trend that I can highlight, climate change and resource scarcity. So with the rising temperatures, with also the lack of rainfall, less and less rainfall. So we have very acute droughts in many countries in the region. So we are having higher cooling demands and reduced water availability for thermal power plants, for example. So in Morocco, for example, we have been building a lot of dams in the last decades, but now because of droughts, 7 consecutive drought seasons, we are unable to generate hydropower because of the low level of water and the dams. Finally, economic pressures and fossil fuel subsidized reforms are key also, in particular when it comes to GCC, Libya, Algeria. So they spend a lot of on subsidized. So now they are reforming policies, and there are many reforms in terms of policies and in terms of redirecting funds towards renewable energy and energy efficiency. So I'm sure that there are more to say, but I can elaborate more in the next question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kharraz, for this context that is laying the ground for other questions, definitely. I will go back to your point on balancing the energy security and national needs, as well as a global trend for global move for energy transition. I want to ask a question for Liilnna. How African countries can balance that call for energy transition globally and meeting the local needs in terms of energy security?
Thank you. Thank you, Abdedaim. I think this question somehow was also addressed by my colleague, Dr. Jauad, but just to give a perspective from Sub-Saharan Africa region and trying to contextualize it in terms of like the energy access challenge. So yes, the number we have all been hearing, 600 million people without access to electricity. And even that is almost half of the population of the continent. And this, when we think about access, even population with access, it may not be the same as the access we're used to here. So there is a strong challenge of reliability. There are a lot of power outages with people who are already connected to the grid or other source of generations, and which is actually affecting growth, which is affecting industrialization. So for me, this prioritization of energy security in Africa would be mostly centered on ensuring access and reliability for the continent. So just to go to the global conversation of reducing emission, Africa is a very diverse continent. There are countries which are heavily reliant on fossil fuel, but when we look at Sub-Saharan Africa, most of the countries do not have or very few fossil fuel assets. So most of the generation actually comes from renewable sources in many African countries. Let's take Kenya. Kenya, almost half of the electricity generation comes from geothermal. For Ethiopia, it's almost close to 90%. So, but which means if they're already utilizing clean energy, why are we not connecting these dots? Because we still have historically low investment in renewables. However, there is abundant solar, wind, geothermal, hydro resources. So I think it makes sense when we make the case for clean energy, there is abundance of these resources. And then, as my colleague mentioned, there is a lot of technological advancements which are reducing the cost of this power generation through clean energy. So it makes sense for African countries. When we are talking about clean energy, yes, our priorities may not be reducing fossil fuel, or it may not be displacing current fossil fuel assets, but it actually makes a business case to actually invest in renewable energies to achieve energy modernization and energy access.
Thank you. And Mirna, same question, but in the Egyptian context, since Egypt has an ambitious goal, what do you think when it comes to balancing energy transition and energy security for Egypt, based on your experience?
Yes, I think the Egyptian experience is very similar to what HE, the Minister from Morocco, highlighted. We focus on this interconnection between development and climate action, and how we can ensure that we build a resilient economy through investing in new and innovative technologies, such as renewable energies. Renewable energy. So in Egypt, we created like a whole ecosystem for or to pave the way towards increasing investment, whether public or private, towards renewable energy. So in Vision 2030, it's clearly mentions how can or the importance of using renewable energy in order to have like a diversified economy that creates new job opportunities, and like this is the overarching framework for development in Egypt. And then we have a national strategy for energy, which highlights that we need to like have 42% of our installed capacity from renewable energy sources. And in order to implement, this is like the theory, and to implement it, we had like financial and regulatory frameworks created to pave the way towards facilitating the implementation of such ambition. Like for the rest of the discussion, I can go into the details of how we made that happen.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the regulatory framework. But before that, I'd love to hear Dr. Kharraz's thought on the geopolitical aspects of rich in energy security, especially in the Mediterranean region, given your work there and expertise, and how that dynamic, especially between Morocco, Algeria, and Spain, shaped energy security for the North African countries.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Indeed, I mean, the geopolitical challenges significantly impact the energy project and the development of cross-border energy infrastructure and cooperation in the Mediterranean region. And these challenges stem primarily for the long-standing rivalry between Morocco and Algeria, exacerbated unfortunately by the Sahara conflict, and the Spain's also strategic position as a key strategy, as a key energy partner caught between the two. So the geopolitical tensions already, I mean, had some impact. I mean, it's directly disrupted critical energy infrastructure like the Maghreb-Europe gas pipeline, which the once transported Algerian gas to Spain via Morocco, was shut down by 2021, unfortunately, when Algeria refused to renew the contract and amid escalating tensions with Morocco. So this decision of cut off a vital gas supply for Morocco, which relied on it for electricity generation, and forced Spain to pivot to alternative like liquefied natural gas imports and the Med-Gas pipeline, the direct Algeria-Spain connection now on. So this example is, among others, illustrates how energy can be leveraged as a diplomatic weapon with immediate consequences for regional energy security. Also, I mean, Spain-Algeria tensions. So there are some tensions in 2022. The Spain's shift in stance on the Sahara supporting Morocco's position led Algeria to suspend the Friendship Treaty and halt trade with Spain. As a major gas supplier to Spain, Algeria's reaction strained bilateral energy relations. So Algeria went more towards Italy and other markets, and so Spain was obliged to somehow to diversify its energy sources further, and highlighting the vulnerability of energy ties to political disputes. So obviously, so there are impact like that, as I mentioned. But from the other side, also it's also provide opportunities. I mean, in terms of renewable energy potential. So Morocco, as mentioned already by the minister, invested a lot during decades in the renewables, in terms of solar energy and wind energy, and also with the ambitious roadmap for green hydrogen production, which offer opportunities also for cooperation with Spain, because as you know, the European market is very demanding in the next decade on energy and green hydrogen. And I think the more cooperation would be expected between, Morocco and Spain in this regard, because they share already similar renewable energy goals. They can take advantage of this connection, the pipeline connection already existing, There is also this electricity interconnection that was mentioned also by the minister, the only corridor working now, functioning between Europe and the North Africa. And there are two lines between Morocco and Spain. And there is a third line under study, so which would be added to to give more flexibility and resilience to the grid in Morocco and Spain. And also there is a plan for another third line with Portugal and one with Mauritania. Also, on the other hand, there is Morocco plans to export renewable energy to the UK, the famous X-Link Morocco UK power project, if you heard about. So that will be the longest subsea cable in the world. So, I mean, this kind of geopolitical dynamics push these countries to find alternative and find other ways to cooperate. But also, I need to mention that at the regional level, there are some frameworks that somehow reduce these tensions and make sure that despite this bilateral conflict, we can have a regional cooperation. For example, we have the Union for the Mediterranean Framework, which is providing a sort of framework where UFM is mandated to implement the UFM ministerial energy agenda. So this gathered all the ministers of energy of the Mediterranean. Plus, we have the new TMED, which is a new EU initiative that will be launched before the end of the year, which aims to boost the regional cooperation in energy, interconnection, and energy trade between both shores of the Mediterranean. There is TerraMed initiative, which I'm playing a role in it, which is aiming at boosting renewable capacity in the Mediterranean to reach 1 terawatt renewable by 2030. So this is another regional initiative gathering all the countries. There is MEFED, the EU MENA Future Energy Dialogue, which is led by the German government. Also, it's pushing for more cooperation in terms of cross-border infrastructure, in terms of collaboration on localization of the technology, local manufacturing, and the trade of electrons and green molecules. But also there is the Pan-Arab electricity market, which is pushed by the League of Arab States, which also we can find then Algeria, Morocco, and all the other countries pushing for a Pan-Arab electricity market and interconnection between the different countries. We know that Egypt have many connections with the neighboring countries, Libya, I mean, some and the pipeline with Libya, Sudan, existing one like with Jordan. Some other will be in the future with Cyprus and Greece. So there are lots of opportunities that also could be also the fruit of this geopolitical dynamics. Thank you.
Thank you. And building on the cooperation point, I'd love to hear Liilnna's thoughts on sub-Saharan cross-border cooperation when it comes to energy projects.
Thank you for the question, Abdedaim. Maybe just to start with kind of a background for the African cooperation in terms of energy trading. So there are mainly 5 power poles in Africa. So currently we're doing a lot of regional integration and trying to go towards a continent-wide integration. So the 5 are northern, central, eastern, southern, and western. From this, the 3 are the main relatively well developed, which are southern, which is relatively well advanced with the highest generation, with the highest capacity, and also an active market for trading electricity. Following the south is the eastern one, which is somehow through bilateral engagements, but also they were ready to launch the electricity market in this month, actually in March 2025, with some delays. I still have not heard the official announcement. And following that is closely is the Western regional power pools. So we have these power pools, but also at the African Union level, there is an attempt for having an African single electricity market, which aims to integrate these different power pools and try to have like a single electricity trading by 2014. Hopefully we'll arrive there. We have still few years to go to that point, but after all, the end goal is trying to utilize the different resources of the continent towards achieving electricity access, but also electricity transition. And some of it is already mentioned by my colleague here, but until we have a developed regional or continent-wide market, there are also a lot of bilateral engagement between countries, which is going to support. If countries are engaged in trading, I came from private sector, so if someone is doing business with you, there is a less chance of fighting with you because they need your business. So that we have, I think what we need to do is we should still like support these engagements, either at bilateral level or at continental or regional level. So, for example, Ethiopia has an agreement with Kenya, Sudan, and then Kenya also have different agreements with their neighboring countries. So this is currently regional, but it also lays a foundation because we're building an infrastructure which can be used when there is a market. So there are a lot of interconnections being built. Just to like mention few of the benefits of why we need to have these regional corporations and towards energy security for the continent. So first, it will actually reduce the risk of shortage, and countries would be able to use power which is not being utilized in one country, would be able to sell that to another country, which leads me to talk about the financial viability of utilities. Maybe if we're following the continent, we have heard that how utilities are really not financially stable. They have a lot of challenges in terms of finance. I think this is common for many countries. Like, it's a different level of development. So some countries would have higher challenge in their utilities because of their customer base or different reasons. So if a utility is able to sell an excess electricity to a neighboring country, it is a source of resources. It is a source of foreign exchange, which they need to actually use that money to develop their grids. So this is one benefit. And when we look at the South Africa power pool, which is, as I said, is relatively developed, what makes it somehow unique from the other regions is they're allowing for private independent power producers to sell to the pool, which means that there would also be an opportunity for private sector to be developed. Like, now, some of the countries are having challenge in attracting private investment because private investment would come like, I've been working in with independent power producers, and our challenge has been getting a reliable off-taker for our electricity. So if you're selling to the power pool, you have an off-taker. So you have less business risk, which means reduces the investment cost. It would also help in raising finance for an investment. So it actually could support us, like as we transition. The East Africa Power Pool also have been talking about allowing private sector to sell to the grid. I think it is coming at some point, but it's not there yet. We also have, looking at West Africa also, West Africa Power Pool, they have more centralized approach, which means the power pool is actually mandated to build infrastructure, interconnection. So this is an opportunity for countries to come together and to pool resources, but also it might be easier, like if a single country goes to international financiers, like either development finance or private finance, to raise for transmission line, which is relatively not going to make a lot of money if it's only for within a border. But if it is done by the pool, it might be able to raise more finance, so enabling the building of larger infrastructure. So these are some of the benefits. In addition, also, of course, I should still mention, this is the Clean Energy Summit. So there are countries, as I've said in my first part, there are countries which are highly dependent on clean energy, and there are countries which have still like trying to transition into a cleaner economy. So having a centralized power pool means they will be able to use to trade, which is the least cost approach. So if a country has an excess clean energy on their grid, they would be able to sell it to a country which is actually trying to meet their net zero commitments. So it could actually support the entire continent towards meeting our clean energy and emission reduction commitments. So these are the main benefits, but I know I'm over time, but I need to also address, because I've been asked this question too many times. Like, I've talked about 600 million people, access is an issue. So I've been asked, why are we talking about selling electricity when a country is not able to meet energy demand for their own people? So this is like a very simple issue. Like some countries have an excess electricity in their grid, which means they have made a lot of investment in generation capacity, but that generation is not met by the grid. So there is a mismatch in generation and transmission and distribution on the other side. And sometimes this could be because of geographical allocation of these resources, or it could be they have announced too many power purchase agreements for independent power producers. What's happening in Kenya, and they have bought too many. They have signed too many long-term PPAs, and now they are sitting on this a lot of electricity power, and they don't have the grid to put it to each and every household. It's the last mile problem. So here is when it makes sense to actually try to sell it, to build it through, if there was a transmission line interconnection, it could make sense to actually sell your electricity, use that proceeds to invest in distribution lines, and maybe in the meantime, off-grid can come in and support and provide access to the people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to the regulatory framework in Egypt before following up on the global cooperation and financing. But I'd love to hear what Egypt's done and the energy regulatory framework. Mainly, was there any reform or any policies in this regard?
Yes, in 2014, there was a new law issued, new electricity law, with the objective of facilitating the engagement of the private sector, whether Egyptian private sector or foreign private sector, into the operation of solar and wind energy farms. So, for example, this law, it aimed to allow for the private sector to build, own, and operate the projects and sell the electricity to the transmission company through PPA agreements. And going back to the point on the importance of international cooperation or on cooperation, since this is my area of expertise.
Yes, please.
When I used to work at the Ministry of International Cooperation, there were buzzwords we used to echo, which were country ownership, innovative partnerships, and these were inspired by the GPEDC principles, which is the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation. And the narrative behind it is to how actually we can face such challenges is through country ownership. The government needs to have its own plan, create its own pipeline, determine its own priorities, and then this will bring in investors, because this creates a visibility that is necessary for foreign and national or domestic investors. So these two, country ownership, inclusive partnerships, can actually de-risk green projects, whether we're talking about risk related to the economy, to the geopolitical situation, or to actually for green projects themselves, they have their own risk. So creating, as I said in my response to the first question, creating this ecosystem that is enabling for investment is crucial, and this is how we can diminish or to eliminate barriers related to investment. And I think this is really important if we're talking about replication and upscaling such models to the African continent. It's important to learn how we can exchange knowledge and capacity building on how we can create such pipeline of projects, how we can cost such projects, how to utilize innovative financing solutions such as blended finance, or it's not that innovative, but other that carbon credits, for example, how we can actually utilize this to mobilize necessary financing. And I would like to take that opportunity to talk about an initiative we're actually working on at Duke, which is the Resilience Credits Initiative. We're trying to find like a new asset class that can mobilize investments towards resilience projects, or to build resilience in developing countries through addressing that nexus between mitigation and adaptation, and measuring the co-benefits of investing in mitigation, and how it can create actually, or how it can be of benefit for the resilience of vulnerable communities across the continent.
Okay. Thank you. And building on that, Dr. Kharraz, you talk about that cooperation that you gave us more hope, as I was more pessimistic at the beginning, seeing more conflicts when it comes to energy. And also, the minister mentioned bias financing. What does that mean? And is the also, so there's 2-3 different questions at the same time, I'm sorry, but like I'd like to understand how financing play a role in that geopolitical context. And also when Liilnna mentioned that there is a dilemma between meeting the domestic needs and also exporting energy. Why is that happening? And is the key answer is financing?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Indeed, I mean, as mentioned by the Excellency the Minister, yeah, we need this innovative financing mechanism in order to push this energy transition agenda ahead. And it's clear that I've been discussing with many stakeholders in Morocco, energy stakeholders, the ministry, the different also institutions in charge of renewable energy project, energy efficiency projects. So sometimes it's not the issue of financing, the finance is there, but as mentioned by Mirna, so it's about sometime to how we can prepare this pipeline of bankable projects. And in Morocco, we had done well, I think, the last decade in terms of mobilizing the finance, in terms of involving the private sector in PPPs, and also the power purchase agreements to de-risk the investment, and sharing the financial burdens and expertise between the government and private sector actors. We also had experience in terms of knocking the door of international finance and climate finance. Also, I mean, using the innovative financial mechanisms like green bonds, blended finance mentioned by Mirna, and many other ways, like also take advantage of the carbon credits. Now, very soon, the EU will impose on us the CBAM, the carbon adjustment mechanism, and our economic sectors are not ready yet. So we need to be to support our industrial sector, economic sector, in order to make sure that we can decarbonize, and in this regard, obviously, green hydrogen could play a role, in particular for the hard to abate industries, and finance also is needed there. I think the major challenge is to get the off-takers that could really come to invest in this. But obviously, we are relying on how the technology could evolve in the upcoming years, and that could really contribute to reducing the cost of investment and the cost of green hydrogen kilogram by 2030. And so it's clear that the financing is an important pillar for the energy transition, and that's why we were discussing with many regional players on a sort of a regional facility or regional investment facility that could really help in getting, the flow of investment and finance from the different international financial institutions, and offering the guarantees for the investor to support, the infrastructure and the renewable energy project in the region. I think this should be encouraged. I think there are many efforts on that. I know, for example, in IRENA, they have also their own facility, ETAF, in which they also demobilized like $4 billion US of investments to be able to support developing countries in their energy transition journey. What else I can say about this? I mean, also we can consider other kind of financing like crowdfunding, community financing. It's important also to involve local banks because, for example, when I was been working the last years on how we can boost energy efficiency in the building sector and appliances, we try to involve local banks because they have also some green products, some to support young entrepreneurs and the startups to invest in energy efficiency project in the building at least. So this kind of thing should be encouraged. Innovative PPA, as I mentioned, is important. So that this is what led to a very competitive prices of electricity from renewables. So with auctions, competitive. We started with feed-in tariff, but we concluded with auctions and competitive bids that really helped in boosting the renewable energy project in the region. And definitely also we need to consider also philanthropies. There are many also philanthropies funds that could be also helping in this process. I know, for example, PI or European Climate Foundation that could help in some of the African countries. Regional cooperation then is key because obviously once we have this interconnections and this regional agreements, I think it's easy then to for the financial institutions like Islamic Development Bank or the World Bank, IFC, etc., to intervene and accompany these countries to develop this kind of joint project. And yeah, so I hope that I respond to your question more or less. So this is my 2 cents. Yeah.
Thank you. We have like 3 minutes before opening up to the audience. Is there anything you want to add for financing, especially in the Egyptian context?
Yeah, sure. So as you may know, Egypt hosted COP27 in 2022. And there was a COP27 initiative announced that actually aimed to mobilize private and public capital towards mitigation and adaptation projects in Egypt, which is Egypt's country platform for the nexus of water, food, and energy. And it mainly builds on the principles I mentioned, inclusive partnerships and country ownership. We were, or the ministry was able to leverage capacity building and like international cooperation partnerships in order to build the capacity of related national stakeholders to build the necessary pipelines, prepare the necessary feasibility studies. And inside the platform, as I mentioned, we have adaptation and mitigation. On the mitigation side, it's easier to mobilize private financing. For example, for the Nwafi platform, it was able to mobilize $2.18 billion of private investment into the energy pillar. It also sets like an ambition of replacing 5K megawatt of existing inefficient oil and gas power to replace them with renewable energy sources, which is about 9% of Egypt's installed fossil fuel capacity. We also have an ambition to pave the way or to create a new market for green hydrogen. We aim to like gain about 5% of the international market, which will have like positive externalities on the economy, whether by creating job opportunities or by increasing the flow of foreign currency, since it's mainly will be used for exports. So I think we have a lot of potential and a lot of lesson learned that can be replicated in other African countries that we need to highlight and we need to build on in order for the whole continent to reach energy security.
Thank you. Anything to add before? Okay. Thank you. Well, we open up for our distinguished audience. If you have any question, yeah. Hi, thank you.
Hi, I'm Edem Adukonu. I've been studying the electric grid energy sector in Africa for a while, and there's one question that keeps nagging at me. So I'll paint a picture, right? If China wants to build 5 power plants, massive ones, they have the supply chain locally, they finance it in yuan, they manufacture it locally, they supply everything, and they construct it themselves, and they're done. If Ghana, where I'm from, wants to build power plants, either they go the PPA way, where they find investors, wherever they are from, anywhere in the world, or if the government wants to build it themselves, they go to Europe to go and borrow in euros, whether they issue euro bonds, or they go to commercial banks. So they borrow in Europe. They find the company that will construct it maybe from Brazil or from US, so they're paying in dollars for foreign construction folks, and the equipment is also not manufactured in Africa. They either source it from the Middle East or anywhere in Asia, including China, Singapore, wherever. And so by the end of the day, we've borrowed a lot of money in euros, and we have to pay back in euros, and the whole work was done by other people, and now we say we are meeting demand for electricity. My question is, who is, or is there anyone who is even trying to establish OEMs, or original equipment manufacturing, in Africa to supply this huge demand for electricity, and there's 600 million people who need access to electricity? How are we meeting them, or are we going to forever borrow externally and buy the equipment externally to supply that?
Thank you for your question. Want to take?
It's a very hard one to respond. I think whoever has answer to that would be solving all of our problems. But I think there are a few attempts, from even a few years ago now, when we hear about all of the investments, we hear a lot of local manufacturing being put into conversations. It's still challenging because, let me give you an example. When I work with IPPs, I used to also work in South Africa. My company used to do business in South Africa, and I also studied a few things about South Africa. So they have local content and local ownership requirement. So we have it in Ethiopia as well. So which means local content means you need to procure certain amount of your materials locally, which means it could be the PV, it could be different things. It depends. And then you have local ownership. You need to have certain ownership. But this actually increases the cost of investment because at the end of the day, for example, if you're buying PV locally versus in China, there has been a lot of advancement in reducing the cost of PVs somewhere else. So we need to have that balance. Governments will need at least accept, okay, it means spending more money, but at some point we can actually get to the place where our materials are competitive in the market. There needs to be a conscious investment, because we're not going to start build a manufacturing plant and be as competitive as the rest of the world. It's going to be more expensive. So I think that's one of the things we need to acknowledge. There are a few attempts here and there, smaller facilities being built, at least for standalone solar production or for mini grids, not large scale. But we still need to get to the point. So I agree with you, but I don't know what is the right way or an answer for this.
Thank you. We'll have time for one more question. We can do 2 based on time.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Fox, a student at Appalachian State University. And with the droughts, mentioned the 7 straight droughts where there was infrastructure built for dams that weren't able to produce hydro, and the hydrogen infrastructure that's going for green hydrogen in Egypt, with you planning to having 5% of the international market anytime soon, and other green infrastructure that is water intensive. How does the droughts and water play a role in clean tech and green hydrogen?
Thank you. Want to take this thought? It's Jauad.
Yeah.
So Kharraz.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Indeed, I mean, when a couple of years ago, everyone started talking about green hydrogen in the MENA and also Africa, the main question was from where we will bring this water needed for the electrolyzers, because for each kilogram green hydrogen, we need at least 9 liters or up to 13 liters of pure water to make this with renewables to produce this kilogram green hydrogen. So obviously, we are facing a very acute water scarcity in North Africa, in the Middle East, and many also region sub-Saharan countries. So we have this issue of water. It's clear that the desalination now is a mature technology with the reverse osmosis, with the economic scale, and a lot of technology development in the last decade. We are having a very competitive prices in terms of cubic meter, and I think at least in the countries that are having costs. So we know that the potential of green hydrogen in Africa for now, the countries in the front are like Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, Tunisia, Egypt, Namibia, South Africa. So all this have coastal area, so they can rely on desalination to provide this water. Obviously, desalinated water will need additional treatment, the ionization, to make sure this to ensure the water quality requirement for the electrolyzers. But still, the cost of this treatment or this process is 1%, 2% of the cost of 1 kilogram green hydrogen. So again, is not really meaningful. So that means that from the issue of water, I think it will be solved with desalination. From the issue of the cost, I think is not meaningful. The cost of this of green hydrogen is more about the energy efficiency of the electrolyzers, how we're going to evolve in terms of technology in the upcoming years to make sure the green hydrogen kilogram will go down to 1.30 hopefully dollar per kilogram. That will make it competitive, and then everyone will go producing. So I think this is regarding the water issue. You mentioned the hydropower. Yes, I mean it's impacted a lot in North Africa, in Ethiopia, in Egypt, in Morocco, because of this consecutive drought seasons. We have very low level of water in the dams, so we are unable to rely on hydropower as in the past. That's why more and more focus now on wind and solar to make sure to increase this share of renewables in the mix of power. I hope I responded to your question.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're almost time. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists, and thank you for attending the panel.